Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Scher, and today we are celebrating the launch of my second publication, Moonrise. So Moonrise is a collection of original poems and illustrations that I wrote about my journey and struggles with mental health over the past few years. Before I get into some very personal details, a quick trigger warning as some of the things that I discuss might make you a little bit uncomfortable or unsettled, but I will keep these topics very light. I had symptoms of depression going back as early as high school, and they continued to worsen over the years as I got older. This was due to bad relationships, unfulfilling jobs, a feeling of isolation, but primarily this was due to my own suppression of my emotions. I always thought that I had to be tough and strong, and that meant that I was not allowed to be sad or cry or express myself emotionally. This resulted in a pattern that continued over the years of me suppressing everything, holding everything in until it became too much, and then I would break down, I would fall apart, and then build myself back up again, and then hold everything in, and this would just continue where I would just keep holding everything in until I reached a breaking point, and then I would just start again. This resulted in me coming to use alcohol as a coping mechanism, not as a dependency, but as a way to lower my inhibitions, bring down those walls of self-control so that I could release all of that pent-up emotion. But believe it or not, this was not a healthy approach. It did not work. It shortened that amount of time it would take for me to have a breakdown. It would help release some of that, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't a solution. It certainly wasn't a safe solution. Fast forward to 2021, I was at my absolute lowest. I felt lost and trapped and so desperate for some kind of relief, some kind of release, that I took to attempting to hurt myself on multiple occasions. Fortunately, none of these were successful or particularly serious, but it told me that I had to make some serious changes in my life. I was about to turn 30, and I could not go on the way that I was going. So I started seeing a therapist, doing weekly sessions with her, and she was absolutely amazing. I started taking medications to help with my anxiety and my depression. I greatly reduced my intake of alcohol because I wanted to be able to express myself emotionally sober without that need to be intoxicated to lower those walls, to lower that control. I started talking and being more open with friends and family about the way I was feeling. I also actively started taking steps to put myself first and to no longer allow myself to be used by others like a doormat. I also quit a soul-sucking job at that time and went out and found something that I was passionate for, that I was excited about, and I finally felt like I was starting to move in the right direction. Like I was finally starting to get to the point in my life that I wanted to, that I wasn't sad or depressed or anxious or angry all the time. Unfortunately, as I was taking steps forward and I was starting to grow, I realized that my relationship at the time was having a very negative impact on my well-being. And the more I tried to move forward, the more I felt like it was pulling me back, and it wouldn't let me grow to be the person that I wanted to be, to end up where I wanted to be. And so I ultimately had to make the very difficult decision to end that relationship, to put myself forward and finally let go of all that negativity that was holding me back. And so on July 28th, 2022, I was thrown out of my own house. I lost my house, I lost my dogs, I lost a lot of personal belongings, I lost some friends in the process. It destroyed me. I had made so much progress, and that just knocked me all the way back down to the bottom. I was feeling so helpless, so horrible, but I had a great support structure around me. I had my parents who took me in. I had my sister and my close friends who helped me get through that time. I had a friend who came down at a moment's notice to come help me move what stuff I could out of the house. Unfortunately, I had to quit that job that I was super excited and passionate about. I'd only been working there a month when all of this happened, so I had to lose that job as well. But even though all of this negative stuff happened, there was still a lot of good. There were still a lot of amazing people in my life who were trying to help. There were still some positives to focus on. and I started to build myself up again. I continued the therapy, the medications, all of those steps that I had been taking to get back to a good place. And 1 year later, on July 28th, 2023, I released Moonrise. It just felt like the perfect full circle way to look back at where I was a year prior. You see how much I had grown, how much stronger I was, and how I climbed out of that pit that I was a year before, and I'm standing here today strong and much more confident, higher self-esteem. I'm certainly not at the end of my journey, but it is a great improvement that I made over the last year, and I was proud of that, and this book is the perfect way to recognize that. One of the poems from Moonrise I wanted to read for you today is called In the Back of My Fridge, and I'd released this one on my social media accounts about a year or so ago, and it was taken at face value, and a lot of people found it to be very comical, and when you read it in that way, it is found to be very humorous. However, it was a much more serious poem, and I wanted to read it and then discuss it a little for you here today. Old leftovers in a Tupperware. I forgot that it was there, but once I become aware, I opt to leave it there. What wretched stench I'd find, and putrid mold combined. Out of sight, out of mind, I push it back behind. Can it ever be clean again? Hot water, soap, bleach to soak in. Could throw it all away instead, but lose my Tupperware in the end. Time passes, the worse it'll become, the harder it will be to scrub. Can't continue to run. Roll my sleeves up and get this done. It's horrid. Cleaning it takes years, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. A stain and faded smell appears, but it's ready again, despite my fears. I'll always remember that Tupperware, and why I hid it back there. But denial got me nowhere. Bravery carried me here. So while it can be enjoyed on a very superficial level about it being about a Tupperware, about leftovers in the back of your fridge, and that is very comical, it is actually a metaphor that stemmed from a conversation with my therapist at the time about me treating my emotions like old leftovers in the back of my fridge. How I would push it to the back, I would push my problems down, and I would leave them there, and I know it's there, and I know I have to deal with it, but I don't have the mental capacity or the will to, so I leave it back there, and it gets worse, it festers, it compounds over time. So by the time I have to deal with it, it's so much worse than had I just dealt with it at the time. So it felt like a very perfect metaphor for the way that I was treating myself. The second poem I wanted to read is called Starting New, and this is one that I actually wrote back in high school, but it still resonates a lot with me today. And that's because it has a very overarching theme that can apply either in a very literal sense or in a more broad metaphorical sense for life. I stare up at the starry sky. The crickets sing their lullaby. Perfect soundtrack to the night. The gleaming moon glows icy white. Shapes and shadows dance about. Headlights shine and then go out. There is nothing left to do but wait for day to start anew. Frigid silence aches my ears. Nothing to distract from fears. Clutch the pillow at my side, drying tears that I have cried. Waking nightmares haunt this bed. Terrors past, horrors ahead. So there is nothing left to do but wait for day to start anew. Pleading for the sunrise rays to cleanse the pain of yesterdays. Pray for morning's mercy hum. Refresh me for the days to come. As light breaks in eastern skies, take this moment to rest my eyes. Feel the hug of a dawning sun. The new day has now begun. So while it can be taken very literally about how sleep, rest, the night is kind of resetting, refreshing for the following days, it can also be viewed in a much broader sense, much like I had to start new, start from the beginning all over again just last year. So during my live stream launch event, I gave the opportunity for some friends, families, readers to ask questions about the book, about me as an author, or about any other works that I have going on. So I just wanted to take a moment to answer some of those questions. When did you decide you wanted to actually move forward to start publishing your work? What made you decide to make this big step? So with my first book, Incandescent Magic Unknown, it took about 20 years until that book got to where I wanted it to be. It took a lot of work, a lot of revisions, a lot of rewrites. Oh my god. It took a lot of revisions, a lot of rewrites until I felt happy with it. And when I got to that point, I was like, you know what? It's ready. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put it out there. I was very impatient. I didn't wait. That's why I didn't even have a launch event for my first book, because I was just so excited, so enthusiastic to finally get it out there in the world after so many years of hard work. However, with Moonrise, this one really was 1 year of work, generally. While I had the collection of poems and I had the idea in my mind that I wanted to publish a book of poetry, it wasn't until maybe about 6 months prior to the launch that I really put my nose to the grindstone and made sure that I had enough there and that it was ready, started doing my editing process, started working on the artwork to get this prepared. Did you do the illustrations? Yes. Interestingly, it was not my initial intent to include illustrations in the book. It actually stemmed from, I had a vision for the cover. I had this idea of, the moon in watercolor and it being drippy, and I had this vision for it, and I wanted to take a stab at doing it myself before paying someone to do it for me. And I had never actually worked with watercolors before, so I didn't think it was going to turn out. And I did a few attempts, and I actually really liked the way it looked, and I had a lot of fun making it too. So it just kind of spiraled from there. I did a bunch of others. I selected my favorites and decided that I wanted to put some illustrations in the book as well. Where do you think you are in the journey? And do the poems revolve around one period or the evolution? So I am certainly not at the end of my journey. I am much, much farther than I was when I was at my lowest in 2021. Yes, I can continue improving. I got to keep taking those steps and keep being very mindful to make sure I don't slide back into those old patterns, but I am definitely much farther along than where I was. As far as the poems, they're generally about the overarching story of the past couple of years, of me feeling at my absolute lowest, of me starting to improve, about me losing my house, about me being lost again, and about me finding the positives and climbing back to be where I want to be and being in a much better place mentally and emotionally. So you'll kind of see that as you read the book, that it's going through that kind of story arch. So it's not about one specific time, though you may be able to pick out, if you know my full story, where some of these line up in the course of the last couple of years, but in the more general sense, it is that full overarching story of my journey in the past couple of years. Can you tell us more about the book and where the idea for it came about? So as mentioned, it is a very artistic journey about my struggles with mental health and overcoming them over the past few years. The initial idea for it came from a discussion with my therapist. While I was feeling very low and very down, I was using art therapy as a way to kind of cope with that stuff in an artistic way. So I was doing acrylic pours at that time, which was something that I very much enjoy. If you haven't seen those on YouTube, look them up, they're amazing. And I was also utilizing poetry. As you know, written word is my best form of self-expression. It's taking those things that I'm holding inside and expressing them in a written sense, more so than a spoken sense. I feel like I can divulge a lot more. So I was writing poetry to kind of reflect the way that I was feeling. And I collected a few different ones at that time. I would read them to my therapist, and I said off the cuff one day, I think I want to publish a book of poetry someday. I think that's a goal that I want to work towards. And fast forward to a few months ago, I had a few more poems that I collected, and I said, you know what, I feel like it's time. I feel like I've grown enough for where I was, and I want to take these poems and I want to put them out there. While I do enjoy sharing my work, as scary and vulnerable as that is, my biggest goal with this one is that not only could people enjoy it at face value, maybe they could get a little bit of insight into mental health, but maybe that people going through their own struggles who might be lost in their own little world and feel completely isolated and like they're in it alone, that they might read these poems and maybe connect with them, and they might resonate with them and feel like they are not alone. There's other people who are going through these things as well. There's other people out there who want to help, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that there is hope, that they can climb out of whatever pit they might feel like they're stuck in. Do you have a poem that you relate to most, or a favorite? So at this time, I would say my favorite poem that I wrote is called What You Can Never Take. It's about a situation or a person that might be trying to suck all the positivity out of your life, trying to take everything in a vengeful, evil way, about feeling this weight of something that's trying to destroy you, but focusing on the positives and finding the beautiful things in life, whether it's love, friendship, what have you, and focusing on those and realizing that this person, this situation, this negativity cannot take that away from you, and feeling this sense of hope that you have some control over what's going on. They can try all they want to destroy you, but you are in control, and you get to focus, you get to find that beauty, that joy that pulls you forward. And so that was definitely a poem that resonates with me the most at this moment. What are the origins for the illustrations? What inspiration/memories did you draw on for them? So some of the illustrations were actually drawn from something specific that was in the poem. For example, the crying eye, this one in the corner of the screen. That one was actually based on a photo that I took last year. So I kind of developed this habit while I was going through the hard times last year and over the past year of taking photos of myself when I was very sad or when I was crying. And I know that sounds very emo, but it was like taking a snapshot in time so I could remember how horrible I was feeling, how weighed down I was feeling. And I remember this particular day that I took that photo. I left the house early because I just couldn't be there. I felt so horrible. I parked my car at a park down the street, and I was sitting in my car before work, and I was just bawling, just miserable. And as depressing as that might sound to reflect on that, I look at it as inspiration for myself, because that is how horrible I was feeling that day. And the painting, using the watercolors dripping to kind of emulate the tears that were streaming down my face at that time, and knowing how terrible I felt back then, but also that I don't feel that way now, that I have grown, that I feel lighter and just better emotionally and mentally. And so I look at that as a reminder of where I was and to reflect on how much I've grown so I could see where I am now. Is there an analogy between watercolor and your life? So I do have an artistic style that I would describe as being kind of sketchy, as you can see from my wall of Ellie's behind me, that my style is very quick. I work fast, I do very sketchy, not very fine lines, not very fine detail, and I like that sense. Not to say that I can't enjoy realism or, ultra realistic artwork. I think that it's amazing that people could do that, but I prefer to be more of a rough, raw style when it comes to art. It feels more emotional, just letting it all out and not having it feel controlled or crafted in the way, like I'm not trying to form anything. This is just putting it out there. And I would say with the watercolors, it was very similar, that I did a style where it was very drippy and a lot of splatters, so that it looks very rough and feels very raw and emotional. I would say that that does very much reflect with my personality and the journey that I've got on. While my personality is very hasty, if you will, like I'm very impatient. I'm very much, I want to get this done and just put that out there. I just want to get it done and get it out there. I don't like to look too far into the future. I live very much in the now. And with my journey emotionally, I think that that says a lot as well, because I kept so much control, kept so much held in, that it made sense that it was just a very quick get it out there before I, take back control and start pulling stuff back in that I don't want to show too much, that I don't want to be too emotional or express too much of how I'm feeling. So it makes sense that my art style would reflect that, of just wanting to get something out that I'm holding in. What's next on the creative journey? So I do have a sequel for Incandescent Magic Unknown in the works. I have not started writing it yet, but I do have an outline that I am currently fine-tuning. So I'm hoping to get more work done on that in the next year. Unfortunately, with the journey that I took over this past year, I wasn't in the best mindset to take steps forward, to put more work into that. And then once I started with Moonrise, it felt much more important to shift my focus and to put that out into the universe. It felt more important for me at the time. But I am looking to get back to the sequel for Incandescent. So Moonrise is out now. It's available for paperback or ebook. You can find it on Amazon. The link will be in the description down below. I've also launched a new line of merchandise to go along with the release of the new book, and this includes t-shirts like the one I'm wearing. There are mugs. There's a very cute set of buttons, like you can see right here on my sweater. There's a set of 5 buttons with the artwork from the book that I absolutely love. They're my favorite in this new merch drop. I'm also selling limited edition signed sets of the book, so if you live nearby, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to sign your copy of Moonrise in person. But for those of you who live very far away, I didn't want to deprive you of that option if you were interested in a signed copy of the book. So I have these signed sets. I will personally sign them for the order, so they're not signed ahead of time. They're signed personally for you. And they'll also come with a Moonrise bookmark that has the poem from the back of the book on the back. And the first 10 orders will also get a high quality Moonrise sticker. If you're interested in just the sticker, there will be some of those hitting my shop soon, so keep an eye out for those. In addition to the sign sets, I'm also selling personally signed prints from the book's artwork, and these, much like the eye over in the corner, they are 11 by 14 with an 8 by 10 print. It has a colored border, but these ones do not include frames. They are personally signed, and I only have a limited stock of these. So if you're interested, go buy them now. I do also have framed prints of all of the artwork available on my website as well with a digital signature. But if you're interested in looking what merch I have available, you can find it on my website, sarahshare.com. Click on the tab for my shareware. That is my shop. I thought it was a very punny name. Thank you. And you can see everything that I have available from the Moonrise as well as the incandescent merch available. Please make sure to leave this video a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this or more behind the scenes content about me as an author. I have lots of things planned and I will get back to this. I know I took a bit of a hiatus for a couple months as I've been busy, but there will be more videos and more content to come. Follow me on my social media. The handle is going to be author Sarah Share on Facebook, Instagram, on Twitter, X, whatever they're calling it nowadays. It's going to be author Sarah Share. Find all those links down below. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy Moonrise, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye for now.